How are you increasing people's lives? Am I being the best guest on Tyler's show? He's opened the door for me to come on, be energetic. I thought about that. I prayed before the show and make sure I'm the best I can be. I mean, you're not going to be perfect. We're not perfect. But every person I meet, I want to increase them.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgenson.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgenson, and today we get to talk with somebody who is a legend in the entrepreneurial world, done a ton of amazing things. I'm really excited to have out on the show today, Steve Ramona. Steve, welcome out.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. This is going to be fun.
Dude, it's going to be so fun because we were already talking before we started recording about the number of things where our paths cross and things we've done in the past. But I want to start at the very beginning. When was that moment in your life that you realized you were an entrepreneur?
It really started when I was a kid because my dad was a contractor and he worked a lot of hours, but he went to every game. He always made time for the game because he had his own time. And this is in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And it was like, God, that's pretty cool. And my dad really built relationships and built a massive company all on relationships. But he had that free time. He worked a lot because back then 80-hour work weeks were a badge of honor. But he really, it was just so cool. And I was really close to my dad. So he really wanted me to be a contractor. And I'm not really good with building stuff. So it didn't work out.
But so what was that like as a kid, knowing that your dad was a hard worker, but always showing up for you?
It meant a lot because he was Italian, full-blood Italian, and the, love and empathy. A lot of that was not part of their DNA. He loved me. And he would tell me, but it wasn't as often as you would think. But I knew he loved me. It showed me I was doing something right, even though he'd tell me when I'm doing something wrong. Yeah. That he enjoyed being around me. I had 4 siblings and my other 3 brothers. He went to the games, was always there. It was a point of him. And that's how the Italian culture worked. We'll show up. He'll be there, and then he'll leave and go back to work, which mom didn't like that too much, but that's a whole different
that's
story
a different
piece. Different thing we're going to get into. But it meant a lot to me. But what really was really cool, Tyler, when my dad had parties, people were gravitating toward my dad. And I think because he had the free time, but more importantly, he was building something successful. Like we were talking about before the show, who you partnered up with in a successful. There's a lot of oomph to that, a lot of branding to that. A lot of fun stuff.
I think a lot of people go into business for themselves for the freedom, right? They want the time freedom. They want the ability to be their own boss. So many of them do exactly what you said too, which is they go from working 40 hours a week to 80 hours a week, but at least they're their hours and there's control. I think there's a little bit of risk when people they get stuck there and they stay self-employed, right? You never get into the true benefits of entrepreneurship and building businesses. What was one of the first we'll call it real business that you were a part of?
It was the health club, and it's such a great story. And I've told them many times in shows I've been on. And I got done with high school. I was going to go try to play football at West Valley Community College. And my family launched a health club and say, why don't you come work? And, in your summer, you're an 18-year-old kid. You want to go out on dates, go to your buddies to the beach, all that. So you need money. My dad was done very well, but he's like, you earn your keep, buddy. You got to earn it. So I worked the front desk, and being 18 in we were a very successful health club. And you knew, because we talked about your journey with health clubs, I was meeting wonderful people, very successful people. But what was happening was they're giving me resources, buying me lunch, meet me at dinner when I became 21, buying me drinks. And it became like family. And it was like, this guy's 60 years old, but he works with billionaires. He knows my name. He sees me out in the street. My buddy's like, that's cool. You know that guy. And I'm like, there's something here about business and relationships that really works well.
Yeah. What's interesting about health clubs and fitness in general is I used to teach our staff that no one comes into the gym that has been dormant and been, lethargic and not been out active without something major happening in their life to be the catalyst, right? So you're not, even though it's a health club and you're working on fitness, there's usually a major mental component happening along with that. And so for some reason at gyms, people, after working out, the endorphins are high, everyone's good, and amazing relationships happen and connections happen. And, the gyms that I ended up being a partner in, I was just going there to work out. And then I ended up being a partner. We went from 1 gym to 5 gyms. We launched a nationwide meal delivery service, and all these other things blossomed from it. That's
building relationships. I mean, a quick story. So I was 19 years old, and this Tony, short Italian guy, I've been around a lot of Italians, as you can tell. And he was a financial advisor working with very successful people. And he came in one day and he called me kid. He threw a book at me. He said, "Kid, read this book." I said, "Okay, I'm coming back next Tuesday. I'm going to quiz you if you don't read it." He was serious.
Yeah.
He wanted to help me. And I wasn't really thinking about it. Okay. It was The Wealthy Barber. It's still around today. It's a little short book. And he came back next Tuesday. He goes, "Kid, did you read the book?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What'd you get from it?" I says, "You're telling me in the book, take 10% of my revenue every month, or income every month, put it away. Don't touch it. If you made $1,000, take $100. I said, "I can do that." He says, "Don't touch it. It's untouchable money." And so 10 years go by, and Tyler, I look at the account, there's $68,000 in it.
Oh,
now,
wow.
Let's go back. This is 1979 or 1981. I was making $3.50 an hour. I wasn't making $20 an hour. So add those numbers up, and I got super pumped. I still knew him, and I called him. I say, "Tony," he says, "Steve, hey, remember that account?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "There's 68,000. I want to pay you. Can I send you $1,000? And this really just changed my life. He said, "No, Steve. One, I'm not working anymore. But more importantly, when you took my advice and ran with it and took action," I say God or opportunity, universe, opened doors for me with some other very wealthy people. I can't pinpoint who, but because I served you, it served back. And I got off that phone and I went, I'm going to keep building these relationships. This is unbelievable. And
that's really neat. So he already felt paid back because you took his advice. It worked out somewhere else, right?
Yeah. And he told me the last thing was, I got to tell you this too. If 80% of my clients did what you did, they'd be billionaires, multiple millionaires. And a lot of them struggled after I left because they just wouldn't take action. That was the other lesson I learned right away.
That was amazing. I remember early on in my life when I was about 19 years old, I realized the concept of the law of the harvest, right, from the Bible, that you reap what you sow, is true, but you don't always reap where you sow. And so sometimes, like, because you plant, you are rewarded because you planted, but not where you planted. And that I have seen in my life so much, that if you're taking action, if you're implementing the universe or God, like it comes back to you, but not always where you were working on it. And so it's such an important part of taking action and then staying open to where things may come from. And that's a really cool story of how that worked for you.
Of course, I spent probably $10,000 that first week. It's a 28-year-old kid. Well, I've got the lottery, and of course, my dad, you got to back off to, come on. Which I did keep a majority, probably half of it there for much longer. But the lessons were incredible.
The lesson was there. So that's a good book that was referred to you, somebody early on. What, as you continued on in your career, what was some of the other businesses that you've been a part of?
So when we sold in 2000, I didn't have a resume. I worked at a health club for 22 years. My resume was my family. I'm not going to walk in a company and go, "Hey, I work for my family." I could have, but so I was sitting around, and here's the power of relationships. And we're going to keep going back to that. Jim reached out, who was a member, and said, "Hey, I'm launching a restaurant. You want to help me?" I know nothing about a restaurant. Kind of similar to what you're talking about your earlier story. And I said, "Sure." So we jumped into the restaurant, a little small restaurant, 8 tables, and we had a counter. I didn't know how to cook. I learned how to cook, shuck oysters. But here's the power of relationships. I met thousands of people over 22 years. You know what I did? And you probably can figure this out. I reached out to those people and said, "Hey, I'm now at this restaurant. Come visit me." I didn't sell them. I said, "I'm here."
Yeah.
6 months, we were rocking. Saturdays and Saturdays, we were packed. People out the door. He goes, "What'd you do?" I said, "I just reached out to people at the health club, people, my friends."
Yeah.
And their friends would come visit me. They'd come spend money, but we'd send and like we were going out to dinner as friends. And it really lit me up.
So back then, did you keep like an old school Rolodex?
No. Audience Rolodex, a piece of paper on a clip that you flip.
Yeah.
Probably see him in old movies, but
Yeah.
I might have had a Rolodex.
Yeah. And we still talk about the Rolodex, even though it's not what it is. Now it's just your contacts. But man, I'll tell you, I had early on in my career, I had somebody tell me about, he called it your sphere of influence. And it was that group of people that you can pick up the phone and call, whether or not they're business contacts, just people in your sphere of influence. And it was, it's a pretty common sales and marketing early concept, but it was new to me at the time. And it was such a powerful thing because I was like, who do I already have relationships that I can, like you said, invite out to the restaurant, right? Because a lot of times doing good business isn't sales. It's just communication, just making invitations, right? And so what was one of the first big challenges that you faced in your, post gym career, and how'd you overcome it?
So after that didn't last very long. He had to leave. So we were about 3 years into the restaurant. But again, I met more new people. So that was in a little small city in San Jose. And at Willow Glen is where the restaurant was. So I had now another set of connections. So I ran into a guy and I partnered up in a recycling company. We took computers, electronics, and recycled them and got paid by the state. And we started again. I did the same playbook. An audience, this is so powerful. I went back to the health club, went back to the restaurant people I met, go, hey, I've launched a recycling. If you got computers, electronics, I do free recycling. We had $250,000 in the bank in 6 months. I'm a 3-man show, me and 2 employees. It was like, my dad was like, what the heck? Because of asking and building. But the challenge came, the state, don't ever work for the state. Sorry, state, if you get mad at me. But they started changing how they were paying me. They weren't paying me all my checks because the checks and balances weren't working. And I had to, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm 6 months in. We were walking around. I got 2 employees. I got to take care of them. Yep. Well, this is where the servant heart can get you in trouble. Well, I kept going. And my cousin, who was the president of the health club, my mentor, Jeff Ramona, and my dad, Ralph Ramona, we sat down and they go, guys, I'm in this pickle. He goes, you got to close it. They will find a job. I'm like, are you sure? It's a father-in-law and a son-in-law. I don't want to put them, hanging them dry. And they said, it'll be fine. So I pulled the trigger, shut the door, had a lot of customers upset and all that, understanding, but still upset. Those guys found a job in 3 months and they were flourishing somewhere else. That mentorship, and I love my dad and my cousin so much for that because it really taught me I served them better by closing the business than trying to keep it home and trying to float them a check.
Yeah, people know if something's not working, and staying in that where they're probably felt committed to stay and try to make it work, but it's not good. You brought up something, and this is obviously really important to you about doing business with a servant's heart. That's the name of your show, your podcast, and something that you take really seriously. But you mentioned that there's a downside to it, and you gave an example there. First, describe kind of what this concept is that you embody through your show and everything else. And then address like the upside first, and then we'll go through some of the ups and downs.
So I love laws like you do, and I love that you set that law from the Bible. Think and Grow Rich is probably right below the Bible. Bible's number one. But the chapter 4, I read it all the time, law of increase. How are you increasing people's lives? Am I being the best guest on Tyler's show? He's opened the door for me to come on, be energetic. I thought about that. I prayed before the show and make sure I'm the best I can be. I mean, you're not going to be perfect. We're not perfect. But every person I meet, I want to increase them. And it happened today. 2 things happened today. I had a meeting with this guy, Rick. It was 10 minutes late. I left. Now, I could have left, and, I never get mad. Things happen in life. But I saw it popped an email up. It goes, hey, I'm waiting in the waiting room. So I went back. It was 15 minutes, and he said, hey, I've got a few minutes. I could still talk to you. We had the greatest conversation of what he's doing. And I'm like, Steve, see, your servant's heart impacted somebody else, and he impacted me. I could have just blown him off, said, what an a-hole. Can't do that. Quit judging. I have this above me. Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental.
Oh, I love it.
I see it every time I walk into my office. And then this morning, a lady reached out and goes, you're so good at marketing. You're so good at helping. Can you jump on a call? Well, it was going to be 20 minutes. It would be 45 minutes. I launched her podcast. gave her some really cool tools to use her phone to market her business. She's a travel agent. And she sent me a beautiful message. People are like, you should be charging for that. I could. Maybe I should. But you know what it is? Tyler, this is my favorite thing. You know how I'm getting paid? God's currency. God is paying me. When I knock on that door of heaven, I'm going to go faith here a little bit. I want that pot, God's currency pot, to be full. I want my legacy. Because, yeah, I charge her $100 for the hour. What am I, yeah, it's $100. But that's a broke mindset. Mm-hmm. I helped her more. And what is she going to do? She's going to talk to other people. She's going to send me a nice little 60-second video testimonial. How great it is. And I've got a bunch of testimonials of people after I meet with them. Man, thank you for spending the time. But here's the most important thing. To me, it's Christmas morning every time I do that. Mm-hmm. Remember as a kid audience, 8 years old, what did you do? You ran to the Christmas tree before your parents. You got up earlier than you ever did. And you open that first gift as your parents let you. I get to do, I know you do it too, Tyler, because we've talked. We get to open gifts every day for people and see them not just be happy, but joyful. And that's coming from the soul.
Yeah, I'm such a big believer of leaving people better than you found them. And, it's not always easy because you can, like you mentioned, sometimes there's the negative side of that where you're self-sacrificing in order to help someone else, right? And so you still have to take care of yourself and find that balance. And you brought up one of those like kind of hesitations or potential downsides when you're overly worrying about someone else in the short term instead of trusting things can work out big picture. You've been doing how many episodes do you have on your show so far?
So I've got 115 recorded and 55 in the docket for the next 6 months.
Yeah, so you've been doing this a little while now. What gave you the inspiration to start this show, the Doing Business with the Servant's Heart podcast?
Like I said earlier, my whole life starts with law of income. Well, not my whole life, but the last 5 years once I read that. You're smiling because you know exactly that feeling. When you get that click, It's like, this is cool. So I got introduced. I was part of a digital business card when COVID was big and everybody couldn't give out cards. So I was part owner of a company. And I'm like, how can I? So I believe serving, I use chin level. So if you're listening, think of you, put your hand at chin level. You're serving, you're helping people. But how can I get to nose level? How can I uplift my service, my law of increase to give even more, challenging myself? So I heard about podcasting. I've been thinking about doing it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I could take my clients who are paying me and bring them more value for what I charge them for. And it just blew up. My first client, J.R. Smith, got him on. He's got a nonprofit. Incredible. 100 views. I'm like, this is cool. I just promoted him.
Yeah.
And then I started keep doing that. And it's built to this incredible, just incredible. If I wake up every morning, I can't believe where it's at today.
That's so cool. So you mentioned that one of the first things you did was go to your clients and bring them onto your show, which this is a constant thing I'm hearing from you, is going back to who you're already connected to and inviting them to be a part of your next thing. It's beautiful. I love it. What is your core business these days?
Well, I do renewable energy and partnerships.
Okay.
The servant heart, I'm going to go back to the challenge with that really quick. I've worked with a lot of people, and I know you have too. And the most frustrating thing is you work with a guy for 6 months, you give him actions, he never takes them. And the 7th month comes, and I've got to go, I spent an hour with this guy, and people go, it's an hour a month. But we forget that hour a month where he's not taking action, I'm trying to serve him. How many other people could I have served? They're missing out. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can't enable people. I should have started charging them. I did over $100 million in partnerships over the last 11 years, putting people together. Here's a great partnership, but I never asked to be taken care of. That's the good thing, because when you serve people, being compensated, the Bible says you can have abundance. It's what you do with it. And I was very adverse to abundance, thinking, I'm helping people, that's great. No, but then I go in debt. I'm not helping myself.
Right.
So now it's, hey, I got this podcast. Do you know any people that are very influential? Well, Bob Berg wrote the Go Giver book, came on my show. I'm like, holy crap. I reached out to Lee Steinberg. The Jerry Maguire movie was portrayed him. I just reached out and said, Jerry, I'd love. I called him Jerry too when he laughed. It's Lee. I said, Lee, would you like to be on the show? He goes, absolutely. Reach out to my assistant. It's crazy. I had Lee Steinberg on my show, who's done billions of dollars of contracts. He's Patrick Mahomes' agent, one of the top NFL players. And I'm realizing if you've got a platform where people have a message, it doesn't matter what level of success they are, they're going to want to share that message. And it started growing from there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think just the idea of being able to start by serving and trusting that the rest will work out is good. But I also like that you started to trust, but also advocate. Right, you can make sure you're being taken care of. It doesn't steal from the project or from the service, like the mindset. Both things can be true. And I think sometimes, there's a book called Overcoming the Fear of Success. And one of the main things it talked about was identity. And it happens a lot with Christians and people who grow up like being taught that money is the root of all evil, is that they think that anytime they are like trying to protect themselves or seek abundance or seek that they're now being evil. And so overcoming that and changing that mindset to like, no, like I can be I can receive abundance. I can make sure my contracts are written in a way that is a true win-win, not a they win and all I did was give. That's not healthy. That's not being a good steward, right? That's so stewardship's an important part of all of this. As you've made those changes and really started to like adjust, what's changed in your business?
Well, from the podcast, I launched a renewable energy partnership company, and we're trying to close $1 billion deal. And that word to come out of my mouth, 64, I never thought it would. And people are like, how are you doing it? Asking. Now, I build partnerships, I build connections, I make sure I bring law of increase, but always the missing piece is the ask. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and they're like Veronica this morning, she's like, I don't want to ask people that. I said, why not? Well, they'll look at me differently. I said, I've done thousands of asks. Nobody's told me, or nobody's gone to a friend of mine and said, God, that Steve guy's an asshole. Excuse my language. I don't usually swear, but they just don't.
Right.
They may ghost you. They may not say they're not interested. That's fine. I've got qualified information. And say, let me get back to you. Let me get to you. They kicked the can across the board and across the street, kept kicking the can. So the ask is important. I've got this principle I developed. It's called the ASLA principle. ASLA. Ask, shut up, ask question, shut up, listen, have active listening, and ask another question. Hey, Tyler, I heard you have a challenge with leads. You need more people to talk to. You're not busy enough. Okay. What are you doing for your leads right now? Well, I go to social media and nobody's responding. Okay, which social media? And we go on and on and on. Question to question leads to, I can know something about, you do the same because we've talked about it. I can know something about their pain point within 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sales skill. I've never pitched them. They don't even know what I do, but I know all about them. But it's also that mindset of law of increase. The law that you mentioned, which I forgot, which is, what is that law again that you mentioned?
Well, I just talked about the law of the harvest.
Law of the harvest. It's saying, it's those are so powerful mindsets. People are going to feel that. They're going to go, Tyler and Steve really want to help.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't buy your product. Maybe they buy somebody's else. And there's, and they buy somebody's product or service and they flourish. Well, guess what, Steve? You look great to them. And maybe they give you a referral. Mm-hmm. Maybe they send you a gift, whatever it may be.
Yep.
See, it's about this social connecting with value, not social connecting with pitching.
Yeah, I love that. One of the early, before The Secret came out and all these other things, I was developing a principle that I called the law of expectation. And it was essentially, why would the universe or God give us anything different than what we were already expecting? And it's now I've learned, this is something I developed on my own in like 1998 and 2000. Jeez. And it's something I've learned now is like manifestation and the print and all these other things. And it's as simple as like, I would expect to find a good parking spot. And other people I know be like, oh, you're never going to get a spot up there. And statistically, I would find one way more often than them. And I'm like, how is that real? Right. And I'm like, why would we get anything we didn't expect? And so I think sometimes when people sit there and they expect that if I ask, and then they make a list of the negative things that are going to happen, then they get reinforced when one of those things happen. But if I say, hey, I'm going to find a way to ask that is under the law of increase, that is a win-win, that is not going to come off salesy, but it's going to come off like I'm truly trying to do what's best for them, it's not going to make them upset. It's going to be like, hey, I have this, hey, based on everything you said, here's an opportunity that I think could help you. What do you think? Right? It's like, no one's upset at that, right? But and so if my expectation is like, hey, if I do everything I can and I make an introduction or make something to them, it's going to be positive. I found that most of the time it is.
And most of the time, Tyler, sorry to interrupt, but you get me so fired up right now. My butt's on fire because when you bring value to people, they're most of the time you go, Steve, thank you. So I think the last 10 meetings, everybody said, how can I help you? They're asking for you. And if they don't ask, you always ask.
Yeah.
But if you get in the ASLA principle or do the law of expectation and just listen and go, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's great. And then ask, hey, I've got this coaching program. I'd love for you to sign up. It's $15,000. They're going to look at you. That's when you get the a-hole. Don't talk to Steve. Don't do this. I had a guy that I wanted to do a meeting with. Somebody said, I want you to connect. I get a lot of referrals. And I jump on and it said $100 in his Calendly. I reached out and said, what's this for? He goes, well, I take $100 and if you show up, I give it back to you. I love your smile because that's the thing I'm like, that is really odd. And I said, and this is where the servant heart comes in. I want to be very servant from the Bible to this guy, but I can't do that. That doesn't sit well with me. Well, and then the next comment was, I've got a family to feed. And I'm like, well, I got a family to feed. Tyler's got a family. You all out there, family or friend or whatever, we got feeding to do as well. And we got to be careful with that because people think they're serving and they're really not. That's negative. Yeah,
I agree. And I think there is a way to do that is different. And I've seen that concept and I'm the same way. It feels icky to me. And I've seen, I've been doing my show 15 years now, and I've had big names like Alex Hormozi we talked about, and Tim Ferriss and Neil Patel and CMOs of large companies. But I've also had just your everyday small business owner. And I'll tell you what, a lot of it's weird where the people who give me friction, they'll be like, well, I'm interested in coming on the show, but can you tell me how big is the audience or how big is this or how long is it going to take? It's not coming from a place of let me come serve your audience, right? It's coming from a place of what am I getting out of this? And so many times those people that acted that way, they might have been big in that moment, but almost all of them I've seen a major fall off. And the people who came in serving, some of those big names, they just continue to grow. And I talked to one of the guys, Roland Frazier, great entrepreneur and here in Southern California. And I asked him, I kind of brought up that topic and I was like, how do you approach this? And he said, I just took the approach early on in my business that I'm going to say yes to things like this because it will all come back. And so he doesn't gatekeep and worry, well, how big are you? And so I just think I've seen the principles that you're talking about play out in real life over the years that I've been doing this and doing business. Steve, we're coming towards the end and I want to get some important questions in here. For me, business is just a vehicle, right? It's what we do because it's how we create, but it's also there to help us create a life that we truly love. One is what item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Oh, I'd love to have my own private jet. I'd fly in a private jet. I'm not a commercial airlines guy. If I could have a jet, my partner laughs at me all the time, but it's again, law of expectation.
Yeah.
And I say it, I tell people that. I've been on another show and I said, they're like, interesting. I say, it's just something that I can get to a place faster. I can serve people faster. I can meet, there's so many benefits. It's not
here's the follow-up. I love that. I love that answer. First place you could go, not work related in your private jet.
Dubai.
Okay.
If it goes that far, I don't know if it does or not.
Yours does, right?
Yeah, that's right. There you go, Tyler. I love it.
I love that so much. All right, we've mentioned the name of your show, Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Where are the best places for people to go to learn more about you and your show?
Just do a Google search. My YouTube will come up, Apple, Spotify, all the different channels, platforms it's on. If you want to reach out to me, I do free podcast hosting workshops every month for free. Again, just like Roland Ferris says, I love giving stuff away for free. Again, it's a way to serve. Don't worry about the money because it will come. Me and Tyler will prove that to you. I can tell you in many ways. And I also do free business mentoring. So reach out, stevr1961@gmail.com.
I love that. Very cool. And so we're going to link to the books that we talked about in this show. We're going to link to Steve's YouTube and his podcast and all of those things here in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, tuning, watching My Biz Ninjas, it is your turn to go out and do something.